Day 51 in a third world prison. It is my last day, my last full day in Belize Central Prison. And I woke up at 2 in the morning, flooded with the memory of when I first met the abuser. My mind just, all of a sudden, I just started remembering all these details about the first time we met. It was the summer of 2020. The best way that I described him was, he was what would I call a middle aged F boy, douchey acting. Like he acted like he was a womanizer, and implied that he had game, but I really personally didn't think he was. He just came off as like this like middle-aged spoiled brat that isn't good with women, to be quite frank. I didn't really take him that seriously. He was this short guy with glasses, always smiling all the time and always complaining about everything. Oh God. And I remember thinking, I just wasn't really concerned about him. I didn't take him that seriously because I was just so overwhelmed with my personal life. I was suffering health issues. I had physical health issues. I think that I was basically just going through extreme adrenal fatigue and burnout. But I had all these physical symptoms that couldn't be explained. And so I was going to a lot of specialists at the time, and people were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. It was even like hinted at that I had early markers for this autoimmune disease that escapes me right now. I can't remember what it's called. But it has like the butterfly rash. It causes women to have a butterfly rash. And women in their mid 40s, it's common for women to have it. So I was just really caught up in that, right? Like, what's going on with me physically? Why do I have all these health issues? On top of that, I had a really toxic corporate job that I was trying to manage and figure out. And then it was the pandemic. The world was shut down. Trump was openly racist and sexist. I was living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and George Floyd got murdered. And I had personally experienced police brutality in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it was the first time I lived in any city in the United States where I personally experienced blatant police brutality. And so when George Floyd was murdered and the city started burning down, I was done. I had to go. So I packed up my stuff and just started working. I left the state and worked remotely in another state. And that's how I met the abuser when I went out of state to work remotely during the pandemic. And the only reason why we stayed in touch was he had lived in Minneapolis himself and had worked as a lawyer for a number of years and we had some mutual connections. I wasn't necessarily close to these people, but I was familiar with them. I had socialized with them in the past. And so, because he was educated, because we had mutual connections, I didn't see him as necessarily a threat because I didn't see him as like a complete stranger. But there were a lot of early warning signs, but I had chopped him up as just someone that we were going to be friends with because after the first time I went out with him, I quickly realized that our values and our lifestyle choices weren't aligned. And, when I had told him, hey, like, I am going through this personal healing journey. And, I have certain boundaries. Number one, I'm not interested in casual sex. And I personally would like to wait until I'm married to have sex with my partner. And he immediately got offended by that and started complaining, well, what about his needs and what about what he wants? And it threw me off because I'm like, you're a grown man acting like this. That's like what like 18-year-old immature boys say. And so it re-emphasized to me, we're just going to be friends. And I told him that. I was like, that's why we're not compatible and we should just be friends. So essentially I had friend zoned him after pretty much the first date, if not it. The second time I went out with him, I really got affirmation that this is a friend zone. They're like, there's nothing else. But, unfortunately, I took his external appearances for granted. I thought he was harmless. I thought he was just going to be a, a friend. I did not understand who and what he was and the warning signs, because at the end of the day, he was a predator. I had never personally interacted with and had a narcissist in my inner circle before, especially dating someone who was a malignant narcissist. So I didn't understand that all of the warning signs. Um, yeah, but it was one of those situations where, man, I've learned so much. I wish I didn't have to learn it this way. Um, there are predators in the world, and it's important to have your guard up, not in a way where you're not living your life, but just being more grounded and paying attention to your environment, recognizing that people wear masks. There are a lot of people wearing masks, and you have to have boundaries, and you have to not be in a position where you're isolated, because it puts you at high risk to be vulnerable to predators. This entire experience has been so humbling. Um, the shame that I carried and the embarrassment of uh, the situations that I found myself in that were not my fault. Um, I cannot allow a predator, I cannot allow an abuser to make me feel embarrassed and ashamed about experiencing abuse. But that was something that I had to really overcome, is the shame and embarrassment of this lived experience. And to be quite frank, like, there was no whirlwind romance. There never was. It was a situation where it was forced. It was a forced relationship. It was very strained and confusing. And the level of manipulation that took place is insane. By the midday, about 2 p.m., my last full day, I was taken to the administrative office, and the immigration officers came to give me back my cell phone, my hard drive, but they did not give me back my daughter's birth certificate or my passport. So I was asking about that. Um, Oh, it was actually the ATIP team that came and brought back my stuff. And it was called, his name was Officer Mivette, Myvettete. He's the member, and I was like, oh, I remembered him. He was the officer that violated my civil rights, denied me access to an attorney, and tried to intimidate me to sign a disclosure form without an attorney present. He was really rude to me. When I recognized him, I just immediately smiled. I was like, oh, hi, I know you. He was no response. He just looked at me. But, I just maintain my spirit and who I am. Because at the end of the day, I know my worth and I know the truth. Please, God, stay by my side. I feel a little panicked. I'm afraid to see my daughter's condition. I pray to God she's okay.